Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, this is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I saw a video just earlier on about it, but what is a modern day status symbol? How do you demonstrate your status? Now, there's obvious ones, the waterfront mansion, the $300,000 motor vehicle in your driveway, the luxury holidays. Hey, I can spend 3 weeks in Aspen skiing each year. There are those sort of status symbols, but increasingly there's a new category of status symbol, which is supporting all the initiatives or policies or one line sort of slogans from the World Economic Forum type elites, the Davos wealthy and all this sort of thing. What are they doing? Well, gee, I'll do that, and that'll confer status upon me. Now, one thing I think we've all noticed this, that how those who are most in support of the globalist project, the mass migration, the climate change, the green thing, and so on. Those people are primarily from the well-to-do class. When I say well-to-do, they don't have to worry about money. They don't need to work. They only work for the purposes of prestige. And you could call them the idle rich. I mean, you call them what you like, but they want to show their status by supporting these so-called causes, trans and LGBTQ and all this sort of thing. So when you look at a lot of the talking heads that are constantly pushing propaganda about this, many of these people are getting paid millions of dollars a year to come out with this nonsense. And I sort of run with a crowd that where quite a few of them are wealthy, far in excess of my wealth, and they live in their their $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million mansions, and or some of them aren't even mansions. That's the sort of bucks you got to pony up for even good harbour waterfront these days, but in Sydney anyway. And they've got their yachts, and they've got their they spend their $200,000 a year on international travel. Causing huge carbon footprints while at the same time buying an electric car because they care so much about the environment. This is where the wives do nothing but attend yoga classes and shop at the horrendously expensive organic food supermarkets and so on. So these are the sort of people that are fully supporting it. So this idea of status by belief rather than status by action or status by consumer goods is a new phenomenon. I don't know if we've seen it before. I suppose it might have happened in places like ancient Rome or even ancient Athens, where there was a small elite there that were getting very philosophical about things, but it's an interesting sort of development, and it's something that's quite recent. Also, it's just too unusual. How is it that these rich elites just parrot the talking points of the World Economic Forum? Why would they do that? How did the World Economic Forum, WEF, become a standard bearer for expression of high status? Is it because rich people go to Davos? Is it what is it exactly? Is it because CEOs of big multinational companies that are invested in the globalist project because they support it? Where does it come from exactly? We can sort of debate that, but just talking about or looking at people, I know that the status is, as much we hold these views, but we are immune from the consequences of these views. That is very much a status symbol. Now, talking to one guy, he's he's inherited a lot of money, and he also has had a couple of huge windfalls on the stock market that smack of insider trading, as far as I can tell. I know the guy well enough to know that he's definitely not high IQ. Far from it. He's his IQ is maybe 99 or something. Like, he's not a bright guy. He's not hardworking. He's not conscientious or industrious. So he's is particular on low-level detail, but as soon as you get to a higher level of detail, he stares blankly at you. So we're not talking someone who's made his own money, but he's quite well off. So he lives in a, I don't know, house somewhere between $5 and $6 million. He's got investment properties. He's got $300,000-400,000 worth of motor vehicles in the driveway, and if you look at the sort of clothes he wears and the stuff that's around, everything is brand name. Everything is fucking brand name. There isn't, and I mean luxury brand name. There's he does. He'd have a few $1,000s worth of joggers just sitting on the rack outside the front door there, and he's got a half share in a multi-million-dollar yacht, and the list goes on. So he lives in a very expensive, leafy tree-lined street type suburb. You never hear a police siren. He claims that he's lucky if he sees one police car a year in the area. And that's to return some sort of wayward teenager that's gone on some drunken bender and is being returned to the wealthy parents' house in a chauffeur-driven sort of thing. So he's got a certain view of the world and a certain I don't care what happens outside of my bubble type attitude. So he's a huge supporter of mass migration. He insists, but the talking points that the Globalist Economic Forum comes out with, and the mass migration advocates, he insists there's this massive shortage of workers in Australia in this case, and also all across Europe and America, massive shortage of workers, and the mass migration of brown and black peasants. It must happen. In fact, it should be increased. It should be mega increased because of this huge shortage of work, massive shortage of work, jobs that just can't be filled everywhere, millions of jobs that can't be filled, and only mass migration can solve it. Now, it doesn't matter what facts you put in front of him to the contrary to say, well, the amount of advertised jobs out there at the moment is lower than it's been, even when COVID was on. So, and there's no shortage of there's a shortage of jobs, not a shortage of workers, and the price of houses are going up. How are the poorer people going to afford that? And he really doesn't care about what the less well-off have to suffer and so on. High energy prices are saving the planet, and he is a good virtuous person. It's a virtue signaling thing. So high energy prices are saving the planet, and so he agrees with saving the planet. And the high energy prices don't affect him. When he installed a special charger for his electric vehicles, and special solar array, special charging unit, a fast charging unit, it cost him over $30,000 to install that. Now, the average person can't afford that, just cash lying on the table, lazy money. So he can do that sort of thing, and then point out how virtuous he is by having these electric vehicles in the driveway. So, but he and others have said this too. They want the mass migration, but they do not want those peasants living anywhere near them, and nor will they. By the way, these people can't afford the Indian peasant, Pakistani peasant. They can't afford $6 million for a house. And if you look at the lifestyle of these people, their kids go to the most expensive private schools. They would need an income of, just to afford the school fees and running the cars and the vacations they have, they would need an income of $500,000 a year just to be able to pay the bills. They own all the property and everything, just to pay the bills. So now a lot of them have status jobs, like on boards of directors, and they're on the boards of Quangos and this sort of thing. And these are do-nothing jobs. These are just status jobs. And the amount of status jobs has increased in proportion to the amount of people that need, if you like, to be bribed to go along with the globalist project. So the elites have been bought off, if you like, by this explosion of status jobs. Not that they didn't exist previously, they did, but there's been an explosion. For example, you look at the dean of a university 25 years ago compared to today, and there's been an inflation of wages for the dean of a unit by something like tenfold, more than tenfold over that time. So that the dean of a university today, not even a first rank one, can be getting paid $2 million a year. And that's before you look at the luxury travel and all sorts of other things that get thrown in, chauffeur-driven vehicles and so on and so forth. So just having just looking at one of those, that there's a guy, one dude's got this expense account which is used to buy luxury wines and all sorts of things. Now that's worth, given he entertains lavishly, that's worth thousands upon thousands of dollars every month. It's all tax free. Those are some of the other benefits thrown in. I mean, when you got a salary of $2 million a year, I suppose having $100,000 a year of tax free wine maybe isn't that big a deal, but nonetheless, it's something that's coming out of the public purse. So these people, they don't care about the consequences that are suffered by those less well off. So when you explain mass migration artificially forces up rents and house prices, well, good, they say. I've got investment properties, so I get more money. I get more rent income, and when I sell the place, I can sell it for much more than I paid for it. So that's good. So all that's good. That's fine. I got no problem with that. Okay, all right, then well, you benefit, and people in your class benefit, and people that you have, lunch and dinner with, and that you go sailing on the yacht with, they benefit from that. But these other people don't. It makes their life, very difficult. And so this guy's, well, that's kind of their problem. I'm doing something good by bringing these the mass migration. Those peasants wouldn't be anywhere near as well off in their own country. So I'm supporting them having a better life in this country. Okay, it's not a good life in the rich terms, but it's better off than the shithole in Pakistan or wherever they came from. So I'm helping them. I'm helping them have a better life and supporting. So that's one sort of way of looking at it. But they have to live, 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment. Well, that's their lookout. That's probably better than they had in Pakistan as well. Oh, okay. So that's sort of. But it suggests status. I can support, World Economic Forum policies. I can support them, and I can talk about them at the tennis club and at the yoga club, and I can do all that without suffering any of the consequences. Such is my status. I can support this cause. I can virtue signal without having, and all of the costs, all of the downsides of these policies. I can push them off onto other people. I don't have to bother about it. Now, this guy's like got the 14 or 15-year-old daughter, however old she is, and she goes to the climate change marches and waves the placard, and gets driven there by in the mother's $180,000 diesel-powered car, and she's wearing the designer label clothes with the most expensive mobile phone, and before she goes to the march, she has to go to the hairdresser which is $250 and so on. But she wants to get out there, this girl, and wave the placards. You look at their house, which is the same as many houses. They've got bookshelves because you have to sort of demonstrate you're well read. The bookshelves are all about Nelson Mandela and Gandhi and all these black and brown sort of heroes that were fighting back against evil Whitey and the like. So the bookshelves are crammed with all that sort of nonsense. But if you bother to look at them, you find they haven't been read. There's not a crease or a bend or anything in it, that they haven't been used or touched. They're purely there for virtue signaling. So this has become a status thing. I don't want these peasants from Pakistan. I don't want living in my street. Don't want them going anywhere near my daughter, and so on and so forth. But as long as they stay somewhere far away where I can't see them, then I'm okay with that. As long as they come along to clean my pool and mow my lawn, then that's okay. Now, this particular guy was complaining that he can't get tradespeople to come along and do work in his house. Now he's got that sort of view where he wants to pick up the phone, call somebody, and they pretty much come over straight away, right? Not tomorrow, the next day, but like it's convenient for me now. Come now. But no, tomorrow's no good. I'll be out on my yacht in the harbour. No, the day after that's no good because I'll be at a soiree downtown at an expensive restaurant. No, that other time's no good. So by insisting that the person has to be at their convenience, they make it harder for themselves there. And these people often have to travel considerable distances. They don't live in the rich suburbs. They live quite some distance away. Some of them may not be able to even afford a motor vehicle, so they have to use public transport to get there. So their sort of their discretion to come just when this guy wants it is quite limited. But he doesn't see it that way. These people are there to make his life convenient and easy. That's it. Now, on top of that, he had some strange views. Now, this is someone who'll burn $200,000 a year on vacations without blinking, and yet he'll fight to the death with somebody to clean his pool if he thinks it's $1 too much than he wants to pay or should pay. So it's a strange sort of combination. He's prepared to screw the peasant down, but if he wants to be virtuous, why not just pay the peasant whatever the peasant wants? To come and clean the pool or mow the lawn or something like that. But no, he has to hold them down to the minimum rate, and he's prepared to have his lawn unmowed for however long it takes to get the rate that he wants to pay. So his virtue is, and his virtue signaling, and his status is very much, hey, I'm the elite and I can do what I want. The consequences of my virtuous attitudes is a cost that you have to bear. So this idea of transferring the cost and moving the cost around within the Western communities is very much the globalist shtick. And if you look at any of the globalist initiatives, to concentrate, say, property wealth in the hands of the few, that's something that they can say, well, that's fine. We can transfer the cost onto the poor. The idea of reducing the purchasing power of the Western paycheck, well, that doesn't matter because we can increase our purchasing power. For example, if you look at, say, the CEO of a large company in Australia in 1970, and I've crunched the numbers on this, they were paid approximately 5 to 6 times more than the worker that swept the floor. So the floor sweeper was getting, $3,700 a year, whereas the CEO was being paid $20,000 a year. Now, there was various things, like the CEO, for example, also had a car provided by the company. There was an executive dining room where sumptuous meals were served and where the CEO didn't have to pay for it. So there were other fringe benefits like that. There was also a luxury apartment on a nice beachfront area that was reserved for the CEO over the summer vacation time. So there were things like that there. But the difference in salary was actually quite small. As I say, 5 or 6 times. Now, to give you an idea of how much the elite have become detached from the worker, the salary of or the CEO, the salary of CEO today, even of that same company, by the way, that's still around, that same company, that the difference is not 5 or 6 times, but 180 times different. 180 times different. And to me, that's a reflection of the extent to which, as the cost of living increased, the elites were able to simply increase their salaries through a whole variety of means, but just able to increase them, whereas the rest of the community had, relative to cost of living, very stagnant wages. So you've got a situation now where the purchasing power of the paycheck is today about 40% of what it was in, say, 1975. Whereas the purchasing power of the elites has increased out of all proportion. Their purchasing power is something like 50 to 55 times more than it was in 1970, adjusted for cost of living. So they're able to buy the waterfront properties and do all that sort of thing. But because of the property price spiraling, then they're able to also profit handsomely from that. The same can be said really of the political class. They make so much money over their overall income now. More than half of it comes from property speculation. So the political elite, who are all owned by the globalists anyway, have heavily invested in the globalist project, in as much as it now delivers more than half their income. In addition to that, I've looked at some politicians just in Australia, but you can apply this anywhere, that when they finish in politics, they're able to walk almost straight onto a number of boards of directors and get multi-million-dollar incomes and fees and speaking engagement fees from all these all these gigs that they're given by, again, the same class that benefit from globalization. The sleazy think tanks, the property developers, the big banks, and the big multinationals, big pharma, and so on. So anyway, this is the idea of luxury, the idea of status is now conferred on one by holding luxury beliefs that have catastrophic consequences for the rest of the community, but for which these people are shielded and immune from, because of their wealth and where they live and so on. Here's another one. Here's another rich one where the daughter decided she was really trans, and so I don't think the parents actually believed it, but they were able to afford not government psychologists, but a very expensive private psychologists and consultants and so on. And after a year or so of seeing these very expensive, we're talking $400 an hour type, and so easily more than $2,000 a week in these sort of services, but keeping them away from the government sort of mainstream. They're able to put it through. At the end of sort of a year, maybe not quite a year actually, the girl decides, you know what, I'm not really trans anyway. I thought I was, but I'm really not. So this sort of elaborate indulging this crazy teenager, the only time she took a break from dreaming of being trans was when she went and waved placards about climate change or something. So here's she's just a silly little NGO activist, and the NGO activist got into her head, and that's all it was. But she's able to, or the family's able, because of their wealth, they're able to pretend to indulge her views and eventually massage and smooth her out of that teenage phase, where if it had gone into some sort of government program, she'd probably already have had her breasts removed. So this is the new era of luxury beliefs, which is really just code for transferring the costs of the catastrophe onto others while keeping oneself immune. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.